Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me, or should I say joining us. We are back on location at La Casita Restaurant and Lounge, which is a lush green spot along Intindatu Road. There's a big restaurant area, great food, and all these cozy little nooks that you can sit in. This episode is brought to you by Old Mutual Investment Group. I have been talking, raving about the Dollar Unit Trust. You need to check it out. Find out more by going to uapoldmutual.co.ug. Now, joining me today, I have the head of alternative channels at Old Mutual Investment Group, Mr. Zac Kisesi. How are you doing?
I've never been better.
You've never been better. I'm going to steal that line. I swear I am stealing that line.
I mean, how many times do you get an opportunity to have a chat with Crystal about investments? So
really, I thought it was about your holiday. Let me report you here now.
Yes.
You and part of your team members have actually
Yes.
just come back from a group holiday. I
That
believe.
is true. We actually believe in being customer centric, but also importantly rewarding the in-house team based on
Yes.
performance. So part of the exceptional investment advisors in our team were rewarded basing on an incentive that had been running the whole of last year, basing on performance to travel for about a week in Dubai. So
Yeah.
we were there last week, and then we returned on Sunday. We returned back to reality.
Oh, we're back to the real world.
Yes.
I tell you what, I checked it out. I mean, I saw a few posts here and there on
Yes,
Instagram. I was like,
yes.
okay, I need a
Yes.
holiday too.
That is true.
But I'm
That's
glad
true.
you enjoyed yourself. You had a good
Thank you.
time, right?
Thank you. Yes, we had a good time. Yeah.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back to reality, but also the fact that you are doing so much work that is changing lives.
yeah.
Because I've been doing a lot of, I've had a lot of conversations of recent around financial well-being.
Yes.
It's funny how we talk about, our health in terms of our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health, but a huge part of well-being is actually financial stability.
That is true.
And there's so many things that someone can do today. I feel like people don't know about still, or didn't know how they had these opportunities in the past.
Yeah,
So you are in investment right now.
that's true.
But you said that's not what you studied? That's not where you started out?
Yes, basically investment is something I did in my 30s actually. Of course, having been a background of sales, which I still do, but
Okay.
though it's now more in the investments industry. So of course, also working I worked in Kenya for about 2.5 years, and also in Uganda. It was also in the health and wellness. When you talk about health and wellness, that actually speaks personally to me.
Okay.
In the sense that, of course, having a background where you're taught about the right way to eat, what to eat, exercise, and things like that. And what I'm happy about is that these days, there's a lot of conversation around investments. And even where we are as Old Mutual Investments, a large part of our portfolio is related to investing for retirement. So if you looked at 15 years ago, 20 years ago, like in the time of my parents, when you talked about investments was about your children. That was what we called investment, where they were saying, when I retire, my children will take care of me.
Yes.
So the greatest investment was
That
your
was the
children.
generations before.
That was the
yes.
generation.
They would invest in you so you would take care of them.
You should have seen how my father lit up when he's talking about his children. Proud of my children, have gone school, they have gotten degrees, some have got masters, others PhDs. That was the value of a life well lived. Now, in today's life, that is still, how you raise your children is basically what will define how successful you are on this earth. That is to me.
Yes.
But the truth is, no matter how much your child loves you, accept the reality that they may not be able to financially take care of you. Yes, you love your child, but
You may do everything for
rent
them.
is so expensive. Mortgages come with loans that have to be paid. There's so much going around. So as much as they love you, most likely you'll have to have a financial plan for yourself. So that's the reason, that's the reality people are living in, and that's the reason why the talk about investments is all over the place. The investment clubs in the past, I mean, this is something that we had always seen foreigners like Indians doing, working together in communities.
Yes.
It took a number of years for the Africans to catch up. But right now, as I speak, investment clubs are mushrooming everywhere. People have learned that if I go into an investment alone, I'll more likely fail. But if I'm in a group of people, everyone is experiencing different aspects. Someone might be specialized in farming, another might be a banker, another might be a trader. By putting your minds together, you're more likely to achieve more than if you went into investments alone. So,
Yes.
Crystal, wherever you go now,
You
everybody's
can,
asking.
and you can do more
Yeah.
because you also have more to
Correct.
work with.
You have more. There's a talk everywhere you go, even in church. People are saying we need to invest. Whether you go, your old girls association, people are like, yes, we are meeting together for social causes, but we need to have an investment philosophy around.
Yeah.
Any social club you go to, investments is now the conversation. And
That
that
is the
is a very
conversation.
good point for us to be, because it shows that you do not want to put your future into someone else's hand, like your child. That is not going to be a sustainable way to think about it. Right now, you're in a position where thank God, I know that my children won't take care of me, so I have to team up with like-minded people and look for a way to answer those hard questions.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to know a bit about your background.
Okay.
You said you started in sales. You were in sales first?
Yes, right from the university, where I was actually doing agricultural business as well, from Makerere University, agribusiness management, because I did as a scientist in high school. So because I always felt that, yes, I want to be a scientist, but but my strength, what comes naturally, speaking to people. Actually, wherever I've gone, I want to do the hard things. But the truth is, everyone I talk to says, but Zac, you're a people person, you're a front person, you're not a back end person. And that actually has, even when where I am, I'm actually a CFA charter holder. That means you've done a course which qualifies you to speak about investments, be it government securities, equities, meaning shares of companies, valuing companies, so on and so forth, corporate governance. People in the investment industry know it, and this is the hardest course in finance. But guess what? My 9 to 5 is all, yes, now it's good to have that knowledge, but Zac, how do you get the customer to understand what you have? So I've always been thrown into sales because that's what I'm naturally good at.
But I think you're naturally good at it. But like you said, talking to people
Yes.
is a gift as
Yes,
well.
it is.
And earlier, before we started the interview, we were talking about how do people really, understand
Yes.
the products that are out there,
Yes.
the opportunities that are out
Yeah.
there. Some of the basics, do people really understand this? Because that's the thing, you hear, oh my gosh, I didn't know that this is that, or people have misconceptions about so many different things.
That's true.
For example, you're saying today people are talking about investments, and they're looking at retirement.
Yeah.
But I was asking you, I'm like, what about things that you can do for your kids to set up, investments for your kids? What are those options as well? So there's a whole range of things that we can look at.
Yes.
So, agribusiness.
Yes.
You
that
thought
is
you
true.
were more for the sciences
Yes,
and
that is very true.
sorry, I also wanted to just bring up something you said, which I thought
Yes.
was really cool, that your dad has always said
Yeah.
that you need to give your children a better education
Yes.
than they give you. Right?
Correct.
That's his philosophy.
Yes, that was his philosophy. He believed in rest in peace, by the way.
Okay.
2004, when I was actually in high school. So that shows you how young I am, Chris. But some viewers, I'm sure, are not born by then. But back the point. So for him, his philosophy was, yes, whatever life I've given you, make sure your children have a better life. And those standards were really high because, I mean, if at that time, if you had a degree, that was really good. And from Makerere University, right now there are many options. So if you went to Makerere, the question is, what's the definition of better? Of first degree should be in Uganda to ground your children into the right principles and so on and so forth.
And they also build that first network of
Vast network of
friends.
friends. And for any Ugandan who's watching, I can assure you, your network is your net worth. In fact, I was back in my sales journey when my managing director, who's currently still my managing director, because I was also in charge of the agent's business, he said, but Zac, how comes I don't see you going out to meet people and talk to people and everything? Because at that time I was actually reading for my exams and everything. And said, Zac, you really need to go out there and deliberately talk to people, which I used to do, but informally. But it's talking about reaching out to in organized groups of people, sports clubs, charities, and things like that. People who would actually not just need the services, but there are a number of ideas that will bounce off them that you can also apply in a place of work. Networking is so important. So
Yes.
when your children are here in Uganda, the one thing they would not get if they were abroad is that network that is being built.
Yes.
And I know many people who want to do so much for Uganda, Ugandans who have never been back home, and when they come, they feel they are lost.
Yes.
So having that background of I know a number of people here before I go and test the waters abroad will make you feel at home when you come back. So networking is something you won't get if you're not in the country.
Yes.
And I'm sure it's a question of so when is the right time to go to the next step? But I think there should be a foundation of sorts. Where it stops is really a conversation with the parents. Should it be
Exactly.
O level? Should be A level? Should be university? But having that child grow that network will really pay dividends in the next
So
number of
having
years.
that foundation, that
Foundation.
grounding, and that network.
Very true.
So they can, even if they leave, when they come back, they can pick up where they left off.
And that's true, Crystal. And you even have now social media, whereby someone will go, but imagine, Crystal, so maybe something happens to your neighbor. Chances are someone in Russia will know before you. And then they say, Crystal, do you know what happened to your neighbor? And Crystal says,
You're
but
like,
I've just
what?
woken up. What? Are you sure?
Yeah.
So this is now, the world is an oyster. It's a very, very small place.
that is a cycle now. You get your news first on
Yes.
social media than even the more mainstream
That is very
platforms
true.
that we used to rely on.
That is very, very true. So social media now makes you talk to people for 20 years, for 10 years, and you
That
actually
is the
feel you're
gift we
part
have gotten.
through social media. But there's also a downside to that. The downside to that is that if I don't meet you, Crystal, and you're so sick, you can send me an emoji that says you're fine,
Yes.
yet you're actually not doing well. And I think that's the reason depression has gone up, suicide has gone up,
Yes,
because I think
People
what social...
aren't interacting in person as
And I'm
much.
talking about physical interaction, because physical interaction has been replaced by social media, and there's a void. In fact, some people even think that the more active someone is on social media, the more depressed they will be in some situations.
That's some of the research coming out.
So if you meet someone who's so active, there's being active, but there's being extremely active. Check on them. Are you fine? Is everything okay?
It almost sounds like you're suspicious.
No.
Like,
You need to find out.
Why are you here
physically
yapping a
meet
lot?
someone. Physically meet someone.
Yeah.
A picture has 1,000 words, and yeah, those are my 2 cents.
One of my best friends is always like, you know what, we are in a group chat and everything, but she's like, no, but we need to meet. I need to see you. I need to look
Very
into
important.
your eyes.
Very important. And I think it is the old school that emphasizes that. But the new school, when I talk to my children, I don't know. I hope that is something that will live, because without human interaction, it's very, very hard for people to remain sane.
And essentially, I think society will die.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
I know
will.
it sounds a bit like extreme, but without actual interactions, there's so
Yeah.
much that we're going to lose.
Yeah, and I'm talking about physical
Something
interaction.
as simple as someone just holding your hand.
That is true.
What are you going to type that's ever going to
That
be
is
the
very
same as
true.
that?
That is very true.
Right?
No, I agree 100%.
Okay. So it's so funny. You thought you would run away from this gift that you have. I
Yeah.
know you do a lot of interviews talking
Yes,
about finances as
Yes,
well and
that's-
investments as well. When did you believe that actually, you know what, I am a people person? I'm actually good at this.
You know,
Or did you already know?
Christopher, it won't take long for nature to tell you. You start from high school, you're the guy who makes the joke and everyone laughs. Personally, from my experience, it's the house I grew up in. Was a house of constant celebration. My father liked celebrating every achievement. Whether it's a birthday party, he remembered all the children's birthday parties. Whether it was a graduation, he called all his friends. So
So it would bring people together.
he was a people person. He always brought people together. So since he was one of the oldest people that ever came to Kampala from Bugisu, he was also a pillar of people in the community always coming to him, because he's like one of the first to get out of. You think about going to 1950s, studying 1950s even before independence. So we grew up in a home of people being around, and also when it came to relatives, just like most African families, you didn't grow only with your biological children.
Yes.
I mean, it was so
You
many
had
people.
so many children and so many
Exactly.
siblings.
He was so loud. He would talk in one room, and everyone in the society would hear him. And somehow my friend says, "Zac, you're speaking so loud." But it's because that's the background I came from. So it
Yeah.
naturally moved on to through meeting people, and then it moves on to, okay, how do I make something from myself? And then slowly by slowly, the truth is, and this is maybe for the young people, university is the best time to try anything. I'm not saying use your tuition to go and
Thank
try
you
out
for
businesses.
clarifying.
No, I'm just simply saying being inquisitive. Being
Okay.
inquisitive, try this, it fails. Try that, it fails. As you read your education, your books, because the truth is, with the first degree, most times you may not even be able to apply it there and then. But
And there's so many people who don't even ever use
yes,
those
refer to
first
it.
degrees.
But the most important thing is to keep trying out so many things till you find out where your strength is. And sometimes being successful at something doesn't mean you're doing what you love. Sometimes it's about doing what you're good at. That's the truth. Because if you ask someone, they might say, I'm passionate about reading books, but that may not put food on the table.
Yeah.
But the knowledge you get would help you to do something else that you're good at. So you might not be good at talking to people, but you find that you have an eye when it comes to the camera. That's why we have a very good cameraman here today.
Yeah.
So trying out different things, and then once you get something that you're naturally warming up to, then you create the resources. By resources, I mean create the time to learn more in that discipline. And before you know it, over time, if you read a book called Outliers, there's a book called Outliers, which always states that the people who are very good at doing something are just the people who spent most time
Yes.
doing it.
Yes.
That is all. It's not that they were
It's
better
as
than
simple
you.
as that, right?
Exactly.
I mean, we're not, of course, discounting natural
Yes.
talent, being naturally gifted at some things, but bottom line, that's what it boils down to.
That is true. So, Crystal, if at all you've spent tens of thousands of hours on media, you become naturally better than someone who's just getting in. So that's what happens when you see something you're good at, or you have an edge over someone else. You commit the time and the discipline to get better and better, and that is now where I'm now running an agents force of almost 500 agents. But it started from smaller teams. But that passion of talking to people naturally evolved into something bigger. And that is now why we're talking about the dollar unit trust now.
Okay. So you said two things. You mentioned discipline and
Yeah.
time, and I think those are two very powerful tools at our, disposal at the moment. One you can nurture and put in place. The other you really have to make the most of, because once time has passed you by, you have less to work with.
Yeah.
Now, for many, many people, mistakes have been made in the past.
That's true.
Right? It's nice, it's all well and good to talk about the things that you can do. But a big part, I guess, of discipline and financial stability
That's true.
is a matter of, should I say, mindset, breaking habits, because many people are stuck in really bad habits, bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like in your opinion, what would you say are some of the mistakes that so many people make, whether young or old,
That's true. Crystal,
that compromise you?
one of the things I'm going to do is to be as practical as possible. Remember, Crystal, I said, in the beginning, I said, we don't want to go into the financial jargon because we are talking to people who are in different fields. So
Yes.
let me talk about some of the mistakes. And maybe let us
And
change
if
the
it makes
word.
you feel uncomfortable, it's okay.
Let's change the word mistake to lessons. It's also
It
a
makes
mindset.
us feel better. Okay,
It feels
okay.
you better because
Okay.
look at it as tuition. Look at this as tuition. Now,
Noted. Lessons.
Tuition, you have got a master's degree in whatever you invested money and you lost it. That don't look at it as a loss. In that way, then you have something positive to learn from.
Okay.
That.
Good point.
Situation. Mistake number one.
You said lesson. Lesson number one.
Thank you very much. Lesson. Okay, let me say lesson number one. I was going to say lesson after, but most people invest in startup businesses where they have very little or no knowledge at all. And by invest, I mean they get all their money and boom.
Because I was about to take you back to you saying that
Yes.
earlier that you should try a bit of
Try,
everything.
but don't test the depth of a lake with both feet.
Don't put everything in.
Exactly. Now, there's no successful business that is better than a startup business. Any startup business is always the best business. Krista, I want you to notice anyone who ever comes to you, and I don't know how Mother Nature does it, but Krista, I don't know how society knows you've got money. I don't know how. When you have no money, they know you don't have, and then when you
And
get
no one
the
bothers you.
day you receive that 20 million shillings, I don't know whether it is there's some natural air that people can breathe and tell. That's how life has always happened. There's that itch to want to spend because you have the itch to want to spend, and so what
I have
happens
to do
is I
something
have
with
to do
it.
something. I have to do something. That one, whether you have 20 million, 30 million, 10, that itch will come. And the mistake you make is to meet someone who is really going to paint you a great picture of a startup business. By startup, I mean, Crystal, we have looked at the figures. We're going to make 200% profit in the next 6 months. Then it will go to 300% by the end of the year. Any business that is startup looks so successful on paper.
Yes.
On paper. Crystal, have you ever met someone who comes to ask you for money and says first year will make losses?
No.
Whether it is shoes,
It's like, we
well,
can't fail.
the odds are in our favor. I mean, Crystal, today we're talking about the philosophy of investing. We're not going to even point out which business is successful, which one's not. You know why? Because every business you try to start, there are people who have succeeded and there are people who have failed. Whether it means going to China, importing things, whether it means going to media, whether it means I'm going to go into agriculture, whether it is fish farming, banana, every business you ever going to think about doing, someone has done it, has failed, and another has succeeded.
Yeah.
So therefore, Crystal, the next time you get that money, boom, hits your account. Resist the urge to spend. This is now we say the lesson.
The lesson is
Resist the urge to spend. In fact, the best thing you can ever say is no. Learn how to say no. Learn how to say no. Or I don't have money. Start with that. Because once you get that money and you have the urge to spend it on the first business that comes, what is going to happen is you're going to lose that money. Let me tell you, Crystal, no matter how successful a business is, there's what we call the law of process.
yeah.
Thoughts become things, but things take time. It's the law of process.
It's just the way things are.
Crystal, I always tell people that if you ever do a business, pray to God that you do a business where you make losses in your first year. Because if you don't make losses in your first year, you're going to make bigger losses with more money in your fourth year. I always tell people when you hire relatives, for example, they may not rob you in the first year, but that lesson will come. You pray it comes in the beginning so that you hire the competent people.
You learn.
Not based on nepotism. Let me tell you, no matter how much money you make, that lesson will be learned. Pray it's in the first year, not in the third year, not the fourth year, because every year that grows, the business grows. So, Crystal, some lessons you learn the hard way. You see, when you see the Indians seated in their office, in their shop, the entire year, every day, it's because of lessons that have been passed on from generation to generation. There are principles that rarely change. If you're not there, a business rarely grows. You're going to talk of systems, processes, these things take time. Now, I'll tell you also, building the right team takes years. Sometimes it takes 3 years to get one key person. And that's the reason why if you have that mindset that I'm going to make losses, then it changes the way you're going to invest your money. So now let me invest 5% of my money. After I know these are lessons learned, this is tuition. So this 10 million I'm investing, well, I have 100. 10 million I will recover. This is money which is tuition. Whether it makes money or losses, you ask yourself, who are the people I recruited? I paid salaries, money disappeared. Okay. There are management costs which you have to pay such that 2 years later, 3 years later, when that gem comes, you have something running to help them continue from there. It takes years to get one by one. And over the years, more and more people attracted to your business.
Yes.
So that is a lesson. So once you have that business you want to invest in, invest an amount you're willing to lose, but also
Invest what you're willing to
willing to lose.
use, to
But
lose.
invest what you're about to lose, but look at it more as what lessons will I learn, even if I know this money is going. Am I learning more about the business, the operations, the suppliers? Where can I buy at a discount? Where, it takes years to get to know the right team, the right. It takes years, and money is going to be spent,
You tell me this.
and that is very
Do
important.
you
That's one
have
of the lessons.
your startups also that you have your own
I
story
have
with?
lost a lot in my small way. Crystal, my boss is also watching. You might create the impression
could be
that,
a very
you've
long
done so
time
many
ago.
things. I have done thousands. I've invested relatives before. 10 acres of maize, no, actually about 15 acres of maize. I got only one bag. That was a mistake. Now, I'm not saying maize production is wrong. I'm just saying how I did it.
How
was the
you went
problem.
about it.
Exactly. What should I have
Which
done
explains
better?
the lesson.
What should I have done better? One, I urgently needed to make a profit. So I actually went into planting towards the end of the planting season. But because someone insisted, no, you can still make it. Let us. That was already red light one. The planting season, I went at the end of the planting season, not at the beginning. That's number one. Number two, I kept sending money without following, because I was in Kampala. These are gardens far in the east. But of course, everything is right, because you're saying maize. The Kenyans always buy maize, and when the product is finished,
can't fail,
you can't
right?
fail. But how I was urgently, badly needing to make money, I went to relatives who did not have an experience of growing for sale. It was growing for personal consumption. You see, all those are different lessons learned.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, you make a huge loss, and guess what? The person who makes the loss is the owner of the business. The workers never make the loss.
No,
The loss
their
ends
lives
with you.
go on.
I felt so bad, and there are so many things I would have done differently now. For example, if I didn't know about maize, why did I go into planting? I'll probably go into starting by buying a finished product, meaning that the profit is less, but the risk has been diversified away. So now there are also losses in planting, but now I would want to give that risk to someone else and focus on buying a product that is already there.
Based on the lessons you
The
learned.
lessons I learned. And as I learn quality and everything, I can now do what we call backward integration, going into the production process, which just takes a lot of money.
Yes.
So these are lessons learned, that if I really want to do this, how can I take my time to build this business slowly by slowly as I get the knowledge? Because just to know any business you're going to, Crystal, the first 1 year, 2 years, no matter how much money you make, whether you start with losses or gains, look at that as a learning phase.
Yes.
So that
But also you said you need to invest in knowledge.
Yes.
You cannot think, what I know now is enough.
Correct.
What I've heard, because my friends, my relatives know about this.
Yeah. And Crystal, if you can, and this one I said, thank God the association, everything. If you can, meet people who have succeeded in the business you want to do.
Yes.
But don't ask them to tell you where they are now. Ask them how they started. For me, every time I meet someone, I want to know how they started. And that's where you get the true story. They will tell you stories and say, my God, is this the price I'm willing to pay? It gives you a perspective.
Yeah.
And it's whether it's a hotel business, whether it is anything you want to do, going to industries, or anything you want to do, get someone who succeeded, learn the lessons, especially how they started.
Okay.
That will now help you now get that traction with the right knowledge.
Okay. So this big lesson, again, was about going into business when you really don't know what you're doing.
You don't know what you're doing.
You're
relying.
You jump in,
Yeah.
head first.
Yeah.
And you don't even, you're using people that you can't really
That is
trust as
true.
well. Because you need to basically use people who know
You
what
do.
they're doing.
You do.
Okay.
You do.
Another lesson.
Yes,
Another lesson.
and also something else to add on that, and that now builds the point of knowledge, in the sense that with the knowledge that you want to get, it's important to, of course, meet people who will give you guidance, but also I also talked about the money you have, invest an amount that you're willing to lose, and that's very important. I think in the beginning, of course, things will be slow, but over time you'll grow. Then also something else which I saw my Kenyans, they do it so well. Most of the Kenyans who,
This is the time you worked there?
when I worked in Kenya, learn lessons. What I went to do there may not have been successful, but there are lessons I learned. That's how I entered investments. Actually, if it wasn't for my Kenyan experience, I wouldn't be a CFA charter holder now, meaning investments. So that's why I'm saying,
Okay.
don't look at it as mistakes. Look at them more as lessons. Whatever happens, there's a lesson to learn. So in Kenya, I observed one thing which I noticed Ugandans are yet to get into. Most Kenyans who have a job create time to see how they can have a side business that doesn't interfere with their job.
Okay.
It could even be a side business that complements. Because I may be an accountant, I work for my boss, but then how can I use my experience as an accountant to build something professional on the side, which of course your employer is aware of. But the point is, what happens in Uganda is that when you land on a big deal and make such good money, you fire your boss immediately. You say, please, Christo, keep that business, but keep that job. Because that job is putting you in boardrooms that you'd never enter if you didn't have it.
Yeah.
The experience, first of all, the demographics. You're talking people who are 60 years old with experience, 50-year-olds, 40-year-olds, young people coming that are intelligent. This networking you get in the workplace, you cannot get it when you go into a business.
So you keep the two going.
Keep the two growing, because, and I was listening to someone who was saying, most side businesses would not succeed if you removed the main source of employment. That major source of employment is so important. Without it, it's side businesses.
And yet there is, again, you see, mindset. There's that we keep
Yes.
hearing, oh no, you
Yes.
have to leave. Everyone
No,
needs
no,
to be
no,
their
the
own boss. You must run your own thing.
Now, the truth is,
But we can't all do
we
that.
will leave eventually.
Yes.
The word is eventually. Timing is so important. Timing is so important. That's also another lesson. If you talk to many of your friends who left that very steady source of income, it could have been little, but it was consistent.
Yes.
And there are so many perks around that employment that maybe you did not see. That human interaction, the quality of people you're meeting, the fora, I am here because of my job.
Yes.
Now, and we're talking about other things. Now, if it wasn't for my job, Crystal, I don't think you'd be here. Why are the viewers listening? Because many of them are my customers in the unit trust. I mean, the whole mutual clients and the entire industry, even from the competitors. All these happen because of that job that gives you that opportunity to grow, to have that income, and you slowly trickle down your other sources of income. So all those impacting, I say, I really want to do investments because I'm good at math, figures, and I'm also good at sales. But the knowledge I need is investments. So that's the reason why when I came back, I said, let me now go back to school. Then that's when I went to do my CFA, Chartered Financial Analyst. You can look it up, CFA exams.
CFA.
Very hard. The pass rate is very low internationally. Pass rate of about 30%. And you've added the success of the Americans, the Russians, the Chinese.
So you're saying
everyone.
globally 30%?
Globally, pass rate on average. So that's why, I mean, we're not so many in Uganda. But you see, what I'm saying is that that experience in Kenya led me to that. And now, with that background in investments, which you've earned over time, you now ask a question: how do you convert this knowledge into products that the people will appreciate? And that was the birth of the unit trust. Now you're seeing one thing leads to the other.
Yes.
One thing leads to the other. So,
And speaking
yes.
of products that people can trust,
Yes.
they first have to be products that people can understand.
Yes,
That's
very
also
true.
something.
You have to ask yourself, as a customer, put yourself, yes, you as the product developer, you say this is the best product, provides the best solutions, does everything. But you're going to talk to someone who has no clue. That person is worrying about rent. That person has a mother who has COVID, like in that time, and that's when our business actually exploded. The people you're talking to have so many issues, and now you're saying, there is this. Why should they listen to you? That is now where the sales background comes in, to help someone understand that all this science behind the scenes can easily be understood using these 1, 2, 3 pinpoints. And that is how the unit trust explode as far as Old Mutual is concerned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now again, you said that you're used to talking in layman terms,
Yes.
and I always like to go back over it because you see, we can say unit trust fund, unit
Yes,
trust
yes,
fund,
yes.
and there's someone who's like,
What is that?
what exactly is that? Actually, I had a conversation with my daughter the
Yes.
other day, and she was saying, "Mommy, one of the worst things in the world is if someone asks you something, and you say, yeah, I know, and
That
then
is true.
something happens, and it becomes very clear you have no idea what you're
That is
talking
true.
about. You'd rather just admit you don't know, say you don't know,
Yes.
and eat humble pie,
Yes.
and that's the way you learn.
That's true.
So sometimes we assume that people understand.
That's true. Actually, I'm also a lecturer of the civil program at Matabakas in industrial area. And I always say that when I'm going to lecture, I tell my students that actually the pressure is on me and not on you, because I have to find the way to simplify complex philosophies. Now, because my job as a lecturer is to make you understand the concept better. And if I don't do that, and you have to cram your way through, I've not done my job. And that brings us back to the question of unit trust.
Yes.
Because I talked at unit trust and he said, hey, my daughter talked to me. Basically, look at it as a savings through investing. That is all. I am saving my money through investing.
Investing.
I'm telling you, Crystal, in the beginning when we were having a conversation, you were talking about some of the challenges, saying that, you put money in the bank and it's not generating a return. It's very common.
And people did that for the longest
For the
time.
longest time, I have my money. Then you're going to hear people talk about words which you don't understand, but they know they affect you. Ignorance will still, if you don't know something, not knowing it is no defense. For example, I may not believe in gravity, but if I stood at the top of a house and I fell, the impact of gravity will be felt, whether I believe in it or not.
Or not.
So ignorance does not excuse you from repercussions. That's what I'm
Yes,
simply trying to say.
yes.
So, for example, you're going to hear something called inflation. And you're saying, what is inflation? Inflation simply means the prices of goods and services going up. That's all it means. The rest now is the jargon I won't get
Some
into.
people even say cost of living.
Very good.
Or
So
just
let me give an example, Crystal. So 10 years ago, 50,000, go to Capital Shoppers. You push a trolley out. Crystal, get 50,000 and go now. So what does that mean? It means this, that in order for me to push out the trolley of things that I was able to do 10 years ago, I need to have more money now than I did in the past. That's a simple, practical definition to your daughter. Inflation. We are
Yes.
keeping it simple now. So now, if you put money in the bank, it's going to be eaten by inflation. Simply meaning that 100,000 will remain 100,000.
it will stay there.
It will stay the same. 10 years will pass, it will be 100,000. It will even be less simply because of the charges that are eating you. Now the question says, since I know money in the bank is not going to help me grow, I have to find out to invest it. Then you go to the bank manager and say, bank manager, how do I earn a return? How can you grow this money? So the bank manager is going to say, okay, there's something called a fixed deposit. So fixed deposit means, Crystal, when you went to the ATM, you would access your money anytime. But if we were to invest this money for you, you won't have access to that money.
You have maybe 6 months, maybe 2 years.
That is now where they say you have 1 year, you have 6 months. But we are going to give you the return. Now, a few things you have to know about this return. One, you get it at maturity. Maturity means after 6 months, after 1 year.
After that time frame you agreed, you
Yes.
signed.
Now, that's a good thing if you're Crystal and you're sure you won't need to access that money. You know me, Crystal? No, for me, the way I look at things, I will not need that money till 1 year. Although I know many viewers here cannot stay without 3 months of earning a salary. And there's also the issue of the businessman.
Yes.
You know how businesses work. For those of you who have done, I've tried some business which have not been so successful, but I have learned
But you
lessons.
need to be liquid.
Let me tell you, Crystal, you're going to get the call from your supplier. I'm not talking about your friend who wants to start a business. I'm getting a call from the supplier in China and says, I have a 30% discount, but you have sent the money now.
Now,
Ha,
you have
you
24
remember.
hours.
You ask your accountant, where is that money in the bank? The accountant says, remember you told us to fix it. We are left with 9 months to go. He said, what? But we need the money now. Now, what happens? You will have to be you'll have to break your fixed deposit, meaning that, and that's why the penalties come. You have to understand, if you are being offered this percentage, all that interest is removed because you did not wait till maturity. I'm trying to keep things as simple as possible. And that's the reason why you have many of the people in the informal sector, businessmen who are listening, who say, I don't mind losing my interest, but even if my money is not earning interest, because I'm removing from the bank, liquidity is very important for me. I don't mind my money seated there in the bank, not earning anything. Now, for that person, he will always remove to invest in his private business, but he has foregone the interest he would make. So now back to problem solution. Now what happens to the interest? Remember, the word is fancy, but it just means savings through investing. So we come to the businessman and say, sir, I know your problem is liquidity. You want us to give you a return, but at the same time, you want access to this money.
You want to be able to.
That is why we have the unit trust. You're going to give us this money, and we are going to invest this money, but whenever you need the money, you'll have access to it. The businessman here listened and says, are you sure? If I put my money...
And while we have your money, we shall make sure that every month...
Yes, it's getting a return. In fact, for us, even the return is daily. But as going to come the part of returns later. But the point is just that confidence that I have access to my money. That is enough for the businessman to say, you've ticked one box, but the other boxes to tick. Box number 1 has been ticked. The issue of accessibility. You know, a businessman downtown, accessibility. That's why they put money in the banks, because in the bank they can access the money anytime. We have ticked box number 1. Box number 2, they're going to ask safety. What about safety of my money? This 2 billion here. I've had many people Ponzi schemes. You give them money and then stories start. Then we say, look here, we are regulated. And Crystal, this is a very important point. Regulation. Who is defending you behind the scenes when you give us money? Who is the person who's putting rules on how we can invest this money? That is where the regulator comes. And that's why I want to tell the viewers or people listening, in the beginning, you have that money, you're young, you've got that money. Where should I invest? Invest where there's a regulator. A person,
no, that's a very powerful motivator.
Very
it will stop someone from moving forward.
The regulator says, first of all, Zac, you have to be licensed to collect this money from the public. And you don't have to be licensed. What's the quality of the team? How many charter holders are there? Do you have operation systems? That you have a system to track finances? Can you do reports on a regular basis? There are a number of ticks, boxes that you have ticked before they say, okay, Old Mutual, you have a license. Even where we invest your money, it has to be with regulated institutions. We can give money to banks. We can like central bank, commercial bank. We are not going to get this money and give it, for example, to a trader. He has money. No matter how attractive the returns are.
Yes.
So in short, Crystal, you know, Zac, if we give you your money and we don't get it, I can go to Capital Markets Authority and report you.
So someone is truly saving through investing, and so you know it's safe.
Those are safety nets. Safety nets. So now you've ticked the issue of safety, the business.
So accessibility, safety.
Then he says, Funirawa. Where do I earn? Okay. Now that's the beauty about. Now, return, I always say, should be the last. Always ask about safety. That's number one. But you see, Crystal, if I went with you and your program and you say, Crystal and Zac have got a product that gives 300% profit every month, let me tell you, money will flow to account. Immediately, the regulator will even distance himself from you. But I do not know about this. But what am I trying to say? And that's where financial literacy comes in. Return should be the last question you ask, not the first one. I always tell people financial literacy, because that you have to ask yourself, where is that return coming from?
Yeah. You have to understand how it works.
Exactly.
It has to make sense.
It just has to be, there's something, Crystal, you don't even have to be so technical. But there's that general feeling of comfort and confidence you should have when you say, this sounds genuine. It is just, so even us, where is that return we're giving? It's coming from investments with the commercial banks and the central bank. And that's why we have regulators who ensure that what we are saying is true. Even have an annual general meeting where you meet the board of directors, you meet all the service providers, the custodian, these big fancy names which I won't go into. You will meet them and you'll ask them questions and you have to give you answers on our performance. But basically in terms of the return, you earn return interest every day. So Crystal, it means every day that passes, the money which you have earns a return. What was the significance of the COVID pandemic, because that is when our business significantly grew. The COVID pandemic taught investment clubs, it taught associations, it taught circles, it taught private companies that it is good to be asset rich. But being asset rich does not mean you're cash rich. You can be asset rich and cash poor.
And cash poor.
Remember when the economy had a total lockdown? The trucks were packed, you can't go to Mombasa. Crystal, you cannot go to work, stay. Total lockdown in your home. In fact, we didn't have even Teams meetings, and that time, Teams came after.
Yes.
But during, there was no business that was going on.
It was only
It
Zoom
was
that
closed.
popped up.
Salaries were not being earned, teams were being slashed. It was a tough time.
Yeah, it was.
That is the reason why many people realized it's good to be cash, to asset rich, but have cash as well. And everybody was in the unit trust, business as usual. There are many people who said, for me, I don't have any source of income, but I have my investment. Please send me interest on a monthly basis. Every month, they received their interest in the comfort of their homes, swiping with their cards, sending the boda money, mobile money, business as usual. That confidence is what made people realize that if we could survive during the toughest time with our investments, we actually need to give All Mutual more money. And that's when we even crossed the trillion mark, just after COVID.
Okay.
Yes, because this is an industry of about 2.6 trillion and we're about 70.3% market share. But if you look at the growth curve, it started about 2020 during the COVID pandemic, because more people, because your business is not growing, Crystal. So that money is in the bank.
No,
What
if
is
your
it doing?
doors are closed,
Send it.
that's it.
Let's get a return. After all, you can access your money anytime. So I've tried to simplify it for your daughter to understand. I hope I've been a good teacher.
No, she was saying how bad it is to
Yes.
pretend to know when you
Yes,
don't.
yes.
Always ask questions, no
That is
matter how
true.
silly.
That is true.
I believe in that. And that's why I'm saying we've been talking about unit trust funds, and many people understand the importance of them.
Correct.
But we cannot assume that everybody actually
That is true.
understands.
That is true.
So that brings me to the dollar unit trust.
Yes.
That,
Yes.
Old Mutual decided to introduce this product, first of its kind in
Yeah.
Uganda.
Yes.
And some people in the beginning were like, okay, but we are a shilling economy.
Correct.
Why are you looking at dollars, US dollars?
Thank you so much, Crystal. And this part of the product offering. You see, sales is a good background to have. Now, the technical things. To share. Now, people kept asking, what more, what more, what more? Thank you so much. Our shillings are okay. We're happy with the return. But what else do you have to offer? There are some people, Crystal, talk to your father, talk to anybody who was working in the 80s. They will tell you what happened when the currency was devalued.
Yeah.
That's a sad story. Nobody wants to
We've
talk
seen
about.
it in other countries.
It happened in Uganda in the 80s. Zeros were slashed off the currency. So if you had 10 million overnight, now slashed to zeros, what is that? Now, barter trade came in. Now you had to exchange because the currency had literally collapsed. Now, anybody who was there in that time that had their wealth in cash lost value. And then everybody who had their assets, intangible assets, retained their value. And that's the reason why when you talk to people who are old, they always think about buying land. That is where that came from. Because once bitten, twice shy. I lost before, it will not happen again. And that's why people will put money in land. It may not necessarily generate a return you're looking for. However, I've retained that value. I've retained the value. No matter what happens, I can always sell and get the equivalent at that time. But I've retained my value. But of course, over 30 years, the economy has been stable. Now there's social media. There are multiple ways of doing business. You have your daughter made. We have an online business. Things have changed. So now we are back to the position where younger people are more, they're open to trying out many investment options. So now, there are about 4 groups of people who we looked at that no matter how good the return is in UGX or Uganda shillings, they do not want to keep their money in Uganda shillings.
Okay.
For example, number 1, you're dealing with an importer. Anybody who goes to Dubai, goes to China, goes anywhere, you will not use the Uganda shilling.
Yes.
You will use the US dollar. Now, if you're not an importer, you don't have to worry about it. However, if you're an importer, that's the reason why you'll have a dollar account in the bank. It's not earning you much return. Dollar returns are so low. Interest rates are low. 1%, 2%. If you're very lucky, fund money like us, maybe you'll get 3%. But they are very low. But the people who need that currency are people who are taking that money out of the country to buy, because you have to buy things in foreign currency. Another group of people are those landlords who charge in dollars. There are those who charge in dollars, and these people, why they charge in dollars? Because the parts, they are also a version of importer. They want to buy things for their buildings, glasses, and they buy in bulk. Then you also look at NGOs. In fact, if NGOs send a lot of money to Uganda to pay dollars to their staff members and everything. And many of those foreign clients or those corporate kind of clients are those who even there are rules about not changing the money to local currency. And they have a lot of money seated there. What happens to those people? What happens to those people?
Yeah.
And then also, last but not least, you have the Ugandans in the diaspora. World Bank report shows that over $1 billion or every year is sent in foreign remittances, meaning the monies which Crystal's sister sends to her. No, not about this foreign direct investment. We're talking about these small monies. Please build me that house, please. Over $1 billion. Where is that money seated? Those are people who want dollar options, irrespective of how low the return is. Now, these groups of people, the diaspora Ugandans, looked at the dollar interest as a solution to a problem. Because at the end of the day, what problem is your product solving? That's how you do business. What problem is my product solving? So because of those people, we created the dollar interest, which was the first dollar interest product in the country, September last year. But it was to target such groups of people. So if at all you don't belong to those groups of people, because now this financial literacy, when should I invest in dollar versus
You mentioned NGOs, importers,
yes,
but
landlords,
also they're business owners.
yes,
Not just
business
landlords,
owners.
but business owners who
Yes,
charge in dollars.
very good, because now those fall under
Yeah,
the import.
so many
They charge in
schools.
dollars, and yes, so that's why I was trying to say that. So how do you know whether to go for the UGX or the dollar? It's very simple. If I, as Zac, am planning to invest in my country, I'll invest in shillings because I'll buy things in shillings. But if I'm planning to take money out of the country in less than a year's time, the reason I'm saying less than a year's time is that there are a lot of what we call, there's volatility. Volatility means, I'm avoiding the big words. Moving up and down. You say
Yes.
appreciation, depreciation. Today the dollar goes up, shilling. It keeps on fluctuating. You can always see on the news, the dollar is this today. In the short run, those fluctuations can be significant, especially if you're taking money out in the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. If you plan to take money out of the country within less than 1 year, keep money in your dollars. But if you plan to keep money for more than a year, the return you'll get in shillings will outweigh the benefit you would get through hedging of using the dollar. So if I told you and you say, but I'm an investment club, I'm planning to buy land in the next 2 years, keep money in shillings. Because the Bank of Uganda is actually rated one of the best banks in terms of managing what we call monetary policy. The big words we want to avoid. Inflation, exchange rates, those big words. Remember, ignorance. You may not know them, but they impact you.
Yes.
You may not know them, but they impact you. So those big things, they impact you. But if you're going to be in the economy, Crystal, and invest here, keep money in shillings. But if you have plans of importing things, whether a fish farmer, you want to import nets, whether what in the short term, less than a year, the dollar account makes sense for you.
Okay.
That is the advice I have.
All right. And I think it makes sense.
Yes.
So the last question, which is, I feel like it's just for the people who think it is complicated.
Yes.
Is it complicated? Like if I wanted to open an account,
Yes.
is it complicated?
The science behind the scenes is complicated, but the product
On your
is not.
side.
It's just like food. You see, when you order food, you just sit on the plate. But the processes behind.
and enjoy what is presented.
The chef, what is going through? My God, you say, leave him to do his part, but I want to see this finished product. So now you're seated there, you have that money. Remember, we said the urge to say no. That each, we said, you get that money, it will lose value seated in account. Invest.
Keep
with
it safe.
Put in the interest where it will grow. Remember, you had the question about investing for your children. Do you know that, Crystal, that every 6 years, the money in your interest doubles? every 6 years. Let me give you an example. Want to calculate how much you'd have for your children, because you talked about children. I'll give you this as an analogy in the next 18 years. Crystal, let me just speak hypothetically. This might be a lot of money, but let's say 100 million shillings. The reason I say 100, if you want to buy a plot of land in Nigeria, this is about money you'd consider. So if you have 100 million now, and we're talking about safe investment, the power of compounding, interest and interest. This 100 million in about 6 years' time will be 200 million. In 12 years' time, it will be 400 million. And in 18 years' time, it will be 800 million. So that 100 million will have grown to 800 million in 18 years in very safe, low-risk investments. And that 800 million, remember the question about schools? I think $30,000, you can afford that tuition with 800 million. That is perspective.
Yes, yes.
The power of the unit trust, and sadly many viewers don't understand, is not seen in the first 1, 2, 3 years.
No, it is not now,
The compounding over time, interest earning interest on a daily basis. This is what happens when you say exponential growth over time. And of course, in that time, you'll even be adding money. It will even be a better story. But I'm just saying, assume you put money and forgot about that investment. You got that 100 million, put it in that account, run away. 18 years later, you come up, it will be close to 1 billion. That will cater for inflation and so on and so forth. So that's what I'm saying. It is not complicated. The science of investing is complicated. That's why you have professionals behind the scenes. But it's simply saying that money seated there is going to lose value. That 50,000 shillings, which is now a small 5 products, in the next 5 years will be worth even less. So that money seated there, you need to find a way to invest with professionals as you get the knowledge and skills to go into those businesses you want to do. Because if you're employed, because I talk to people who are going to retirement, that job is going to be taken away. That's the truth. So you have to find a way to invest that money. So that when that time comes and those perks are removed, those benefits, you are not going back, you're going down. And in retirement, people die within the next 10 years. Why? Because you're going to get that lump sum from NSSF. And when you get that lump sum, you're going to invest in a business you have little understanding of. Had you learned those lessons 10 years earlier, you'd be smarter with the knowledge, experience, you've already built your ecosystem. It would make sense to invest that money.
Yes.
But if you're just getting that package and going into brick and mortar, meaning I'm putting up that house, how are you going to maintain it? What's that source of income?
Oh, now I can finally buy that car.
Buy that car.
The moment you drive it out, it's lost value.
Exactly. So buy the car, yes, but buy one which is within your means. But the good thing about life is that God gives you time. You see, time is a resource. You have 10
We
years
keep
to go.
coming back to
You
that.
have 15 years to go. When you learn the lesson in campus, you use that money, you lost all, even if it was 5 million shillings or 1 million shillings, let me say 500,000. That 500,000 you lost in campus was equivalent to 500 million. That loss was, even though it was committed, it was huge.
Yes.
Now that lesson, don't forget it. Because if you've learned a lesson of 500,000, you won't make that loss on 5 million
Yes.
and 50 million. That is how I would simplify this conversation in a nutshell.
I love it. So I guess my final question to you, knowing what you know now,
Yes.
what would you probably have changed way back?
What would I have changed? Chris,
Is there anything?
this is a very, very, very selfish answer. I would not change anything.
Okay.
I would not change it. You know why?
The lessons.
Even how I met my wife, it was just I met her in a place which she went to for her first time. So had I changed something, maybe if I had not gone out and met her on that night, maybe I would have met her. So that's why I'm saying,
I like to ask this question because there are many people who say, oh, I wouldn't have done this and I wouldn't have done that. But more and more people I find are now saying, I won't change anything.
Won't change anything.
Because one small thing could have taken you
Very
on a
true.
completely different.
So that's the reason why I'm saying you look at it not as a mistake, but as a lesson. Because when it's a lesson, have you noticed why older people speak less? It's not because they did speak more when they were younger. It's just that because of the experiences they've gone through, now they are measured. And they're like, I hope my child does not lose the inspiration to keep trying new things. But I hope that the lessons that they learn from this enthusiasm and excitement will push them through life. Like, for example, I know many people who, I'll give an example, people who didn't finish their degrees because the talk is what do you need your degree for? And guess what? When the opportunity comes for you to get a job, if it's a big company, the first thing they'll say is you need to give them, you have to give them the right to check with your university whether you got that degree or not. And that's just entry. You may not have used your degree, but minimum to work in some companies.
Absolutely.
you
I
need a
know
degree.
someone exactly like that.
And then you wish, I wish
5
I had
years
finished.
went by and then
Exactly.
they realized that they can't move forward.
Beyond that. So as my father said, my father always said, have the habit of finishing things. Once you start some, finish. Get the degree even if you may
And
not
it's never
need it.
too late to start anyway.
Get the masters. If at all, you don't have to do the masters, but if you set your mind to do it, finish. You never know.
And seek knowledge wherever you can find it. There's so many courses. And
So many courses you
things.
do. You may tick all the boxes, but they need a consultant who needs that paper, which would have taken you 3 months to do as a professional
And then you
course.
miss out
And
because
you
of
miss
that.
out. So always, Krista, you said lastly, let me also say something. One of my favorite phrases is, dig your well before you run fast. Meaning that the dry season,
That's like plan for a rainy day or something.
dig your well before. Don't wait for the dry season to dig the well. Dig the well when it's raining. Let the well catch the water so that when now the dry season comes, you have water.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying always be prepared. So even these lessons, what would you change? Don't change anything. But the greatest tragedy is pass through an experience and learn nothing at all. Your relatives, you love them. Give them money, lose it. But they are no longer, they are not enemies. They are just a lesson you learned. Next time, give the person who's competent.
So you're saying don't take it personal.
Don't take it personal. Don't take it personal. It is part of life.
Part of
It's
life.
part of life. And it's the law of process. You have to pass through the process. And it should get you better. Now, if you have that attitude, losses will be lessons. And you will not.
And there's
have-
nothing that will ever really shake you.
Nothing will. Think about it, any experience you've had in the past, Crystal. And even the one which really shook you. Now you just laugh about it. You overcame it.
Yes.
And you learned a lot and you became the Crystal you are today. It's the same thing with life in general. Yes.
Well, Zac, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you too.
This was amazing.
Yes.
Please still take me seriously after what I'm about to say. But do you remember that Bible song
Yes.
that was about a gentleman called Zacchaeus?
Yes.
Yes. For
Yes.
some reason, that song was in my
Well,
the whole of the morning.
the morning.
And I'm like, I'm a serious woman. I will not mention it.
But
But now I have.
Zac has always been in money-related things. He was also a tax collector. So I'm just living along the lines that he said.
Nice one. Well, thank you for coming.